Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp podcast, where you'll find the motivation, inspiration, and empowerment that leads to real transformation, the lifelong kind. Keep listening and keep moving, Burn Nation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited today to be talking about postpartum fitness. So what better than to have one of our amazing trainers, Ashley Hearn, here on the podcast, who has trained hundreds and hundreds, thousands at this point of pregnant women and postpartum women, right? Because we're all postpartum.
We're all postpartum for life,
babies. Right? So Ash, tell us a little bit about your background and really what you've done to prepare yourself to be able to train women like this.
Yeah, awesome. So I've been a trainer at Burn for almost 6 years now, which is kind of hard to believe.
Crazy.
But I joined Burn as a very new postpartum mom. So my youngest at the time was 4 months old.
Okay.
And I had kind of stayed moving during my pregnancy, but nothing like Burn Boot Camp, obviously. And I can very vividly remember coming into that first workout, the very first core day, and being like, what in the world? So been training for almost 6 years. And one of the things I recognized pretty quickly is that a lot of our clientele, right, are women. And so there were pregnant members in the very first camp I trained, and I really knew that I wanted to be proficient in that this was such an important thing. I love that now society is really pushing healthy, active pregnancies, but we want to make sure we're always doing that in a way that's really safe. So I immediately got my certification in pre and postnatal training, and I highly recommend that for any trainer that's going to be working with the female population, because like you said, we're postpartum for life. So even if you're not currently training pregnant members or a pregnant clientele, you are going to be training women who have had babies. And so we really do need to understand that doesn't look the same as just regular personal training. You don't really learn that in your basic certification. And so it was very new information to me. And then I've just kind of become passionate about making sure that is the standard at all Burn Boot Camps, that we know how to make sure that these women can train their entire pregnancy if they want to. And most importantly, how to bring them back safely to their workouts and in a way that works for their bodies, so that we're in it for the long haul. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And that's kind of how we have to approach this, especially during pregnancy.
And I've had 3 babies while obviously Burn has been, in my life. And so I think that even myself, like I've educated myself after the first baby thinking I needed to go do all these things still. Like I still needed to do pull-ups until I was 38 weeks because I wanted to be a badass, but I've learned over time, and I'm thankful for guidance, from you and other trainers and myself to be like, hey, I'm maybe doing more damage right now. So what would you say is the biggest thing out there that you see women doing that they really shouldn't be doing during pregnancy?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we say all the time to our pregnant members is you can modify for 9 months or you can modify for the rest of your life. And just reminding them that just because you can doesn't mean you should, because so many of our members are like you, Morgan. They love this fitness journey that they're on at Burn. They're proud of the progress that they've made. And so they get pregnant and they become nervous, right? That they're going to lose that progress, or they still want a good workout. They still want to be pushed. And so a lot of it is educating them that there are things that we can do. They can still get really great workouts, effective workouts, challenging workouts, but in a way that's safe for them. And so I don't know that there's one thing. Well, maybe there is one thing.
Yeah.
It's plyometrics in the third trimester. That's probably the number one thing that we see a lot of women continuing to do, that we really have to pull them back. And that's a challenge for them mentally to take that step back, because there's just a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor with impact. So that's probably the number one thing that I would say that we see. But it is a lot of things too, like pull-ups, overhead presses, things that you don't necessarily connect with the fact that there's a ton of core engagement involved. And so it's just educating them on what those moves that might compromise the integrity of their core or could cause damage long-term that we don't want to do.
And it's not necessarily because it's unsafe for the baby, because likely it is okay. So like you said, if you can do it, doesn't always mean you should do it. It's really about that pelvic floor, about those core muscles, about the damage that you could be doing. That's just going to make it harder postpartum to get that strength back.
Most mamas are really good about not doing the things that they feel like could be a danger to their baby. But we don't always think about, what is this going to look like in the long term for me? And I know personally, I didn't know anything about this when I was pregnant, even with my third child. And I was active. I was a runner. And I ran into my third trimester, 34, 35 weeks, pounding the pavement. And I did not have any idea that that was doing damage to my pelvic floor. And no one told me, even my obstetrician.
No.
And I don't think that there's enough conversations happening about what the long-term repercussions of some of those things could be.
Yep.
And so most of it is education, because I think once we educate women, hey, look, this is about protecting your pelvic floor. Here are the consequences, or what could happen if we continue to do these movements. They're like, oh, wait, I don't want to deal with incontinence for the rest of my life.
Right.
I don't want diastasis recti, and then I have to modify core moves for the rest of my life. And so education, I think, is a big thing, and just making sure we are really having open conversations with women about their bodies, about how things feel, and about, honestly, what their long-term goals should be.
This whole bouncing back culture. You know, one of my missions, I know one of your missions, is to just debunk that, right?
Yes,
Same with
100%.
Burn Boot Camp. It's like, that's not what we're out to do. We're not out to get our body back in 12 weeks postpartum. And, you know, this is more of the long term, right?
Yeah.
And how are we feeling? And how are we taking care of our body during the sacred time of postpartum, like when you're truly postpartum? So what are your thoughts on the bounce back?
Yeah, man, it's so hard. It's such a hard balance, because I think we can all sympathize and empathize
Yes,
if we've had babies, right?
Yep.
That it's hard to lose your body, or what you have in your head of what you should look and feel like. And so you've already been through 9 months, and you kind of have that as your target. Like, in 9 months, I'm going to be right back to normal. And then you realize, wait a minute, there is this fourth trimester. That's what we call it. Those 12 weeks immediately postpartum. But for a lot of women, it's not just 12 weeks.
No, yeah.
We really try hard at our gym to have women come in immediately for a focus meeting once they're cleared by their doctor. And honestly, even if you're cleared before 6 weeks, you should not step foot into the door or start impact at all before 6 weeks. And that, to me, is the minimum.
Yeah.
A lot of times when our mamas come back, even at 6 weeks, we're like, hey, we're going to kind of modify the way we did when you were pregnant. And that includes the plyometrics, right? Their pelvic floor is still very weak. Their core is weak. And we try to have a conversation where we level set expectations, right? So look, you're sleep deprived. You're feeding a baby. For a lot of women who are choosing to nurse, they may have other kids underfoot in tow. So what we don't want, hormones are crazy. Yeah, we don't talk about those.
You're likely still bleeding sometimes.
Still bleeding sometimes. There's still relaxin present in the joints for up to 6 months.
Okay.
So your joints are compromised still for another 6 months. People don't ever talk about that.
Yeah.
So plyometrics, full range of motion movements, heavy weights sometimes are not a good idea. So it's really having a conversation, assessing where they are, and reminding them that it took 9 months to have this baby. So what if we give ourselves that same kind of goal coming out of pregnancy? 9 months, right? And so we're in it for the long haul. But it's hard. It's a mental thing for a lot of women. And so,
I mean, for sure. I went through it 3 times, and I tried to be super open and transparent with Ryan, my last baby, to like show moms like, hey, we see what we see on social media, which is like moms posting that they have the flat stomachs already. Like, it's so discouraging. And so I was like, that certainly is not me. My body's just not, that's not how that works. So I'm going to show people like, hey, I still had a pregnant looking belly 1 week, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, like postpartum. And that's okay.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that you're failing. And
Right.
I also think the pre-baby body is another like term that I would love to
Oh,
just
I'd love to get rid of
eliminate,
that.
because you've had a baby, you know, like it's pretty unrealistic to think that your body is going to go back to what it was like before it had to carry a child.
Agreed.
And so if that's like your goal, and again, like that's why it's so good to like level set with the right people around you to be like, listen, this shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to feel good, right? To have your energy, to balance your hormones, and then to start to build that strength in a safe way. It's funny. I got cleared 4 weeks postpartum with Ryan, and I was shocked. I was like, and a couple of my friends too, that like, so now they're moving it even back to 4 weeks if like everything went seemingly well with your delivery. And I was like, no way. And even with my C-section, because I've had both. I've had a vaginal, I've had a C-section, and then I had a VBAC. I was cleared at 8 weeks for my C-section. I didn't go back until 12. It just didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. But the pressure was there at 8 weeks to go back.
Yeah.
So
It is amazing to me how much earlier and earlier it feels like women are being cleared to begin working out. And I do think this is like a Western culture kind of thing. In other cultures and all over the world, women really rest and recuperate.
Yes. They sit in bed for 4 weeks.
They do. They don't even get up. Meanwhile, we're up with the baby strapped on us, doing the dishes and the laundry and going on walks and trying to do all the things. And I think we forget that the body has really gone through a trauma.
Yeah.
And we just sort of take that for granted. And so I do think there's a healthy now shift for a lot of women like you who are saying, hey, this is not normal. What you see on social media, there are some women who can immediately go back into their normal routines, but that isn't the exception.
Right.
That is so not the rule. I mean, I've been training here for 6 years, like you said.
Yeah.
Hundreds of women who have walked through having babies, through their workouts, coming back. It is not normal. It is the exception by far.
Yeah.
I can count on one hand the women who have been able to jump right back in.
Yeah.
Most of them, it is a lot of time, a lot of rest, a lot of recovery, and giving their bodies time to heal from their deliveries.
Absolutely. So for anyone that's pregnant and listening to this or getting ready to get pregnant, what is something that they can do to prepare themselves for that 4th trimester?
I would say the biggest thing is, number one, I think we have to focus on pelvic floor health. We don't talk enough about that. Obviously, I'm not a physical therapist, so I can't really prescribe exercises to do, but there are so many little things we can do. Squats, glute bridges, learning how to do a connecting breath. I know that sounds like, what is that, right? Diaphragmatic breathing. We're connecting our pelvic floor, our core, all of that with our breath. Those are things, number one, they're going to help you in labor, to have those things. But number two, they are going to help strengthen your pelvic floor. So when you do go into that 4th trimester, you haven't done damage. Like, there are just things that are going to happen, right? You're carrying a heavy load of a baby. Your abdominal muscles are going to separate. But we can do what we can do to prevent causing further damage than it's just going to happen naturally. And so those are some good things they can do. I think just listening to your body, learning to take rest days while you're pregnant and you're continuing your exercise routines. Like, yes, we can absolutely work out all 9 months of pregnancy, but maybe not at the same pace or the same level or without the rest and recovery. Give your body that time to recover so we're not just putting so much stress on it before going into that delivery and recovery from that postpartum.
I think I didn't hear about pelvic floor until we got deep in it here at Burn, but no one really does prepare you for that from your OBGYN. So if you are listening to this, take this as a sign to go do a little bit of research on what is my pelvic floor, and do I have somebody near me that is, a physical therapist that can help you postpartum. I think everyone should see a physical therapist.
Oh, absolutely.
Before they get cleared. I think I saw that somewhere too on Instagram, where someone's like, that needs to be incorporated into our healthcare for women for postpartum care. But unfortunately, it's not. So we have to advocate for ourselves.
I do wish that was part of the process, right? That you got cleared by your OB for the internal, the uterus, all of those things that need to go back into a certain position and things like that. But that we also had to see a pelvic floor therapist so they could assess the pelvic floor. Yeah. Because there's going to be different
Everyone's
degrees.
different too.
And it's different for, even you've had 3 babies, I've had 3 babies. It's not the same for every pregnancy. It's not the same every single time. And so we'll even sometimes come into it with an expectation based on our own experience. And like you said, you had 3 very different deliveries with 3 very different probably recoveries.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that too, I think it's a good reminder that, my postpartum journey looked different after my first daughter, and then after my second and after my third. It looked different every time. And I was the crazy one that had 3 kids in 5-6 years. So I still have work to do on my pelvic floor that I never really got the ability to fully recover until I got pregnant again. And so I think that's another good reminder that if you're listening to this and it's been 5 or 10 years even since you've had a baby, you still can do work and exercises to strengthen your pelvic floor. If you are someone that's peeing every time they jump, there's hope for you, right? And pelvic floor, it starts with that, but it has to start with being willing to kind of take a step back and be like, what are the things that I need to stop doing temporarily so I have better long-term success?
And that's a hard thing to do. But I do think we've sort of get in this state where we think, well, this is normal. It's common, but that doesn't make it normal. And I think that's what we need to remind people of. If you're peeing every time you're jumping, yes, that's common. Is it normal? No. Are there things that we can do to correct that, to work on our pelvic floor? Like you said, even 5-10 years postpartum, 100%. Same thing with diastasis. A lot of women will complain. They'll come in to Burn as maybe they're new members and they'll say, oh, my back is just hurts all the time on leg day, or on core day and I'll say, has anybody ever checked you for diastasis recti? And they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
And they've had 3 or 4 babies and they have no idea. Sure enough, we'll check them and that's what they have. And that is causing all of those back issues and they have no clue. But there are things that they can start doing immediately, little exercises they can do on their own at home, depending on the degree of diastasis, or consult a PT or a pelvic floor physical therapist that can help correct that. Because a lot of times pelvic floor dysfunction and diastasis are connected. They're hand in hand. Yep. Usually if you have one, you might have the other one as well. So don't feel like there's no hope for you, right? If you're 10 years postpartum and you are like, man, my back hurts every time I squat, maybe there's something going on with that core, but it can be corrected. There are things we can do to try to fix that.
Yeah. And so for somebody that, is jumping back into a workout or getting ready to, I think it's also a reminder that you don't have to not move around, right?
Absolutely.
Those first 6 weeks of postpartum, I remember that was like the mental release for me, and just that slow movement, not necessarily getting right back into jump ropes and heavy weights. But, we are into fitness here. We believe in it, and movement is very, very important. So wouldn't you recommend that they still are moving their body, especially for mental health, before they do get back into the gym full time?
I think it's a great way to transition from, even if you've been cleared at 6 weeks, maybe that doesn't mean you come right back into what you were doing pre-pregnancy. You start with walking, which is a great weight-bearing exercise. You start with squats and bridges and connecting breaths and things. You can go back to some of those pregnancy mods, those core stabilization, your dead bugs, your Pallof presses, like all of that stuff that focuses on core stabilization, breathing correctly, pelvic floor strength, and start with those small movements to move your body. And that is going to go such a long way. You're going to be able, I think we think I want to get right back in, but sometimes jumping right back in actually kicks our results further down the road, right? If we just take a little more time to ease ourselves back in, do the things we need to do to let our body recover, we actually are going to be stronger going back into it when we're ready.
Exactly. So I want to end this podcast and just reinforcing that we acknowledge that it's tough mentally for the body image. So, postpartum, that body image, you've now gone through it 3 times as well. I've gone through it 3 times. And I think if someone's listening to this that's maybe just fresh off having a baby or multiple kids, what's advice you give now that Nora is
almost 8
now? And so that journey of your own body image and how you've gotten through some of those times.
Yeah, I do think it is hard mentally. I think we all have this vision of ourselves in our head, whether that's pre-baby bodies which we definitely need to outlaw that term, but we still have it in our head. And so I do think it's taking a step back and really being proud of what your body just did. I don't think we often celebrate what a female body can do, how miraculous it is, how amazing it is, and how strong we are that we can carry those babies, deliver those babies, whether it's vaginally via C-section. Then we're taking care of those babies. Our body produces what they need to live. It's all really wild and amazing. And I think just reminding mamas, look, your purpose and your strength is so much more than the way your body looks. And that doesn't mean that it's not a daily struggle that we sometimes have to lay down, but reminding ourselves of where our strength comes from, where our identity comes from, the things that we really are proud of outside of our physical appearance. And remembering to be kind to one another. Instead of, even if you see that mama who has, her body's bounced right back, don't comment on her body. Comment on her strength. Comment on, how well she's taking care of her children. Comment on how, those other things that we can identify with that aren't a physical appearance. And so that's still a daily struggle for me, almost 8 years into having kids, right? We all struggle with wanting our bodies to look a certain way or feeling like that we're identified by that. But if we focus on the other things that make us valuable as people and as women, I think that goes a long way in just changing our view of how we see ourselves and how we see others.
Start to celebrate yourself for those things. Right. And I think you're going to start to teach your mindset to turn off some of the negative things. It's still going to creep up. Trust me. When summertime rolls around and then the bikinis roll around and you're on the lake or you're in the pool, that insecurity starts to creep back in. But just really grounding yourself and reminding yourself, the important things, and that what is in the reflection of the mirror is not a indication of the value of who you are.
And it's a short season with little kids. I know you're in the thick of it still. I have 2 older children, so I know how fast it goes. And I think when we're in that season in the middle of raising babies and having babies, it feels like you're going to live there forever.
Yeah.
But in a blink of an eye, it's gone.
I hate hearing that, but I know it's true.
It's gone. And you have all this time that you can then focus on those things. So just try to sit in it and enjoy it. And don't let that be something that distracts you or keeps you from really enjoying the season that you're in with those
absolutely.
kids, so.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ashley. We hope you guys got some good nuggets out of that. And again, this is for any of you that are, have had babies. You are considered postpartum, so it's never too late to really take control and make sure that you're doing the right things to protect your body for long-term sustainability. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you never miss a podcast. Bye, guys. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.